kids! Last week, Jeff and Kyle introduced you to our awesome new board game, Steamboat Kids Island, and we're off to a great start. But if we want to make it all the way to the end, we've got to follow some rules and show some responsibility. Responsibility is showing that you can be trusted with what is expected of you. When you are young, you have to be responsible at home and you have to be responsible at school. As you get older, you get more and more responsibilities. That's why it's important to learn how to be trusted with what is expected of you now, so you can be responsible for even more as you get older. So before we take on today's challenge, let's check out what the guys are doing.
Last week we landed in the marsh. You look ready.
I look like I am in the marsh.
Yeah.
See, if we're responsible enough, Kyle, to complete this week's challenge, then we can move past the marsh into next section of our game. Now, do you know what lives in the marsh, Kyle? Hippos!
Let's do it.
You want to play
Hungry,
the game?
Hungry Hippo.
Hungry Hippo. I'm going to beat you.
Who do you think?
Who do you think's going to win? The guy that looks like the marsh. Ready? On your marks and set, go. I win! I win!
I won. I had all three of them.
I don't know. It's pretty close. Hey, kids, we're going to pass it over to Lana.
Hi, everyone. I've got an amazing story for you today. It's actually a story Jesus told, and it shows us another really important way that we can show responsibility. While Jesus was on earth, crowds followed him everywhere he went. Some followed Jesus to hear his teaching. Others came hoping he would heal their sickness, while others still followed Jesus just to keep an eye on him. One day, a man in the crowd spoke up. For those of you who have your Bibles, go ahead and open it to Luke 12:13. "Teacher," he said, "tell my brother to divide the family property with me." This man wanted more for himself, and he figured Jesus could help him get it. But Jesus said, as it continues in Luke 12:14 through 15, "Friend, who made me a judge or umpire between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against wanting to have more and more things. Life is not made up of how much a person has." To make sure the man in the crowd of people really understood what he meant, Jesus then told a story. Let's dive into our Bible story to see what that story might be.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Luke, chapter 12, verses 13 through 21.
Everywhere Jesus went, large crowds followed him. Some really wanted to learn and change. Some were just curious. Others, like the religious leaders, listened to Jesus' words so they could trap him with tricky questions. But there were some people who just wanted Jesus to back them up, to tell them that their way was the right way. One of these was a man, we'll call him Ezra.
"Teacher! Hey! Teacher!"
Ezra's demand was loud enough that everyone stopped talking to look at him.
Are you gonna let me through or what?
Ezra shoved through the crowd, dragging another man behind him, his brother.
"Teacher, you've got to tell my brother here that he has to divide the family property with me."
Ezra's brother looked like he wanted to sink straight into the ground. Jesus turned to Ezra.
"Friend, who made me judge or umpire between you?"
People listen to you. I thought you could, just settle this. Tell my brother I'm right.
Watch out. Be on your guard against wanting to have more and more things. Life is not made up of how much a person has.
That is not what I asked.
Jesus didn't argue with the man. Instead, he told a story, a parable. If he had told this story today, it might sound just a little something like this. There once was a rich man whose field grew a fantastic crop of grain. Perhaps it was corn. His manager brought him the good news.
Sir, we're set to bring in a bumper harvest of cobs and kernels.
Yes!
Go me!
Oh, well, your employees did an excellent job of preparing the fields.
Go me!
And there was a lot of sunshine.
Go me!
And just the right amount of rain.
Go me!
Yes, go you.
Harvest the crop at once!
Well, we're working on that. There's just a little problem.
Problem? Who messed up? Fire them at once!
Oh, no. It's a good problem. You don't have enough barn space to store all your grain.
Huh. I'm just too successful. Go me.
Well, I was thinking you could share some of the grain.
Share it.
Well, yes. Some extra bushels for your employees, maybe give some of it away, popcorn for all the kids in town, hold a cornbread festival for everyone.
But it's all mine.
Oh, yes. Yes, it is.
I know. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I can store up all the extra grain for myself.
Oh.
See to it. I want those new barns up by the time the corn harvest is in.
Yes, sir.
The old barns were torn down and brand new, bigger barns were built.
Perfection. Is the corn harvest complete?
Yes, sir. All finished.
Excellent. Have the men store it all in these new barns immediately.
But they're so tired.
I said immediately.
Yes, sir.
At last, the rich man's entire corn crop was stored in his shiny new barns. He settled back in a comfy deck chair and surveyed his property as the sun set.
Go me! Self, you've done pretty well for yourself. You got grain stored away for a lot of years to come.
He popped a gourmet corn chip into his mouth.
Self, take it easy. Eat, drink, and live it up.
You foolish man.
The rich man nearly choked on his chip.
Excuse me?
The rich man looked around, but he could see no one. He was entirely alone.
Oh, great. Is this supposed to be some God moment where I discover what I've been doing wrong?
That's exactly what it was.
You foolish man. Tonight I will take your life away from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?
Could we come up with a different ending to this story?
But there was no way out for the rich man. He had chosen to focus only on what he could keep for himself. Jesus wrapped up his parable by explaining,
That is how it will be for whoever stores things away for themselves, but is not rich in the sight of God.
We don't know how Ezra responded, but maybe, just maybe, he started worrying less about getting more of his family's stuff. Maybe he started to care a little more about sharing what he did have with his brother.
In Jesus' story, the rich man had more than he needed. He had enough food to fill up his barns, and he even had the money to build new, bigger barns to store more for later. But to God, this man wasn't rich at all. To be rich in God's eyes, a person must treat others the way they want to be treated and put the needs of others before their own. They must be generous with what they have and share it with other people. We don't know what happened with the man who first asked Jesus to help him. We don't know how he reacted after he heard Jesus' story. Maybe he stopped worrying about getting more of his family's stuff. Maybe he thought more about sharing what he did have with his brother. But we can learn from what Jesus taught that day. We can choose to be generous with the things God has given us. We have a responsibility to share God's gifts with others. Remember, the bottom line, share what you have. Say it with me now. Share what you have.
Everything we have comes from God. From the food we eat, to the places we live, to the things we have, to the people we love. All of this is a gift from Him. And Jesus' story was very clear. He told us to be generous with what God has given us. Of course, Jesus gave us the perfect example of generosity. He gave His life freely so that we would be forgiven. Because of Jesus, God gives us grace and forgives us when we make bad choices. When we understand what Jesus did for us, we should want to be generous to others. We should be willing to share. And you know what? That's another great rule for life, and it's actually today's bottom line. Share what you have. All right, say it with me. Ready? Share what you have.
I love that. Share what you have, because we have a responsibility to share with others and put their needs above our own. And let's be honest, that's not always easy. It can be hard to share your favorite video game or your favorite type of pizza, especially if there's only one piece left. It can be hard for me to share my phone. But when we remember what Jesus did for us and just how generous he is, it's easier to let go and share what we have. Our memory verse is something that Jesus told his disciples, which we can find in Luke 16:10. Jesus said, "Suppose you can be trusted with something very little, then you can be trusted with something very large." This week, talk about what God has given you and how you can share it with the people around you. Have fun, and we'll see you next week, Steamboat Kids.